This week, the Pima County Board of Supervisors voted not to accept federal funding designed to support law enforcement in counties along the U.S.-Mexico border, also known as Operation Stonegarden Grant Program. That means a loss of more than $1 million. Paul Ingram from the Tucson Sentinel joins me now with more on the controversial vote. Paul, thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you.
What's changed? Because for so many years, beginning back in '08, Pima County has received upwards of $16 million over the years.
For the last 12 years, up until 2018, this was part of the consent agenda. It was something that they would pass with a voice vote, among a bunch of other things. What's changed is, to a large degree, I think, the Trump administration. The Trump administration has really poisoned the politics, soured the politics about Operation Stonegarden. And that is also coupled with a lot of activists who really don't want the Sheriff's Department to use Operation Stonegarden funding because they really see it as a way of getting the sheriff's deputies to collaborate with Border Patrol.
So part of this discussion surrounded funding for humanitarian aid. Remind our viewers that it is something that you could apply to the federal government for, but the feds said no?
Yeah, so the idea is that they would take about $200,000 out of about $1.5 million to spend on humanitarian aid. And when they sent that to FEMA and to CBP, those agencies said, no, that's not how Operation Stonegarden works. Instead, you have to use a different funding source for money that you want to use for humanitarian aid.
So who's on the hook for paying for things like gasolitas when Pima County said we want to have a place for these people who are traversing through Pima County, whether they come through the Migrant Protection Protocol, but they're temporarily in Pima County? Who's on the hook for paying for all that?
Well, in a lot of ways, still the federal government. The county has requested a bunch of different grants, and those have actually kind of started to fill in, but the county still has to fill in about more than $500,000, almost $600,000 for costs. A lot of that was actually for setting up the Casa Elitas Welcome Center, which is set at the Juvenile Detention Center, and that was about $600,000 in costs specifically there. So they're still kind of having to buttress or back end that cost. Those grants are probably going to fill in. So for the county seems like it's not going to have to actually end up paying funds for the Welcome Center. The bigger question is what it's going to end up having to pay for other sorts of things that are attached for border security, especially because Operation Stonegarden isn't coming through, then kind of what comes next.
Sheriff Napier used this money for equipment, for overtime costs. Now that he doesn't have it with the board's approval, can he still apply for it and hope that perhaps the Board of Supervisors has a change of heart?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that has happened each year is that Sheriff Napier has kept applying for it. So in 2018, they were actually approving the 2017 grant, and in 2018 they decided not to. In 2019, they actually approved 18 grant, and now we're kind of approving and still approving the same 18 grant. So there's a 19 and then of course then possibly a 2020 grant that will be approved. So right now the 2019 grant is out there, so Sheriff Napier can apply for that one, and then a 2020 grant will be coming.
Pima County is the largest border county in the United States. What sort of message does this send to people who look at this region and say, well, if you don't want money from the feds, then what?
The one thing to keep in mind is that Pima County gets money from other kinds of grant funding sources, and there's also a bunch of different kind of task forces that are related to this. So it gets very messy in terms of what this means for law enforcement, because there's other grants and other approvals, and there's other agencies. While Pima County might not accept the money, you're going to see probably Oro Valley Police, you're going to see Santa Cruz, you're going to see Cochise, you're going to see Pinal County do that. One thing that Sheriff Napier pointed out, which I think is probably right, is that all these other guys will still use Operation Stonegarden money, and specifically for Pima County and Pinal County, they're actually flying their own helicopter here to do border missions anyways. So in some ways, it may not really affect the border mission, but it does affect the Sheriff's Department's ability to do some of these overtime operations, and especially in places like Ajo and Arivaca.
You've been covering this for some time. I imagine you're hearing from the public when they come to these meetings. Any concern about what this means for the average taxpayer who's saying, where's my money going, and will it now be funded for border security?
Well, one thing too is that with Stonegarden, there's a pension cost, and there's a long-term pension cost. So as you have deputies who are getting overtime, that means that their pension actually gets more increased. And that was one of the big issues, especially from Supervisor Sharon Bronson, about saying that maybe the feds actually really aren't covering our costs, and so each time we accept Stonegarden money, maybe we're actually going to be on the hook for more money in the future. So there's about, at least the sense is that the government covers about $500,000 of the actual cost. So it lays out, and it lays out over a long period of time.
Okay, are we likely to see this on an upcoming agenda again?
Certainly.
Okay, Paul Ingram from the Tucson Sentinel, thank you.
Thank you.